Good morning, lovely people. Right, today I've just been watching a little old video back about 3 or 4 years ago, and boy, have I changed a lot since then, and for the better, I hope. Some of the hair colours and haircuts were a bit crazy, I think, at the time, but hey, that was me then, and certainly there's a big difference that has changed me. One thing that hasn't changed me though is the fact that of my character trait, which has always been a very empathetic person, deep empathy. These things that stay with us, I think, are things that never change. As we go through life, we change and alter according to what we're experiencing at the time, and we have to learn a lot about ourselves, I think, and which is quite difficult at times. We sort of tend to always, I think, go through those stages, and it makes us have to look at ourselves in different ways. We may accept labels, dismiss labels, go through different types of phases of healing certain parts of ourselves, and then finding that we may have been healing the wrong parts, labeling ourselves things which don't actually fit or didn't fit or shouldn't have even fitted at the time, learning how we've been labelled things which should never have been labelled, and that we should never have accepted and that we did accept. And at the time I was going through ever such a lot of painful stuff. I still having a lot of stuff that I have to deal with at the moment, and having the courts and things, the involvement and fighting the fight, but I've got a different attitude towards it now. I think being able to feel is a strength and not a weakness. Now, of course, there's a difference here between mental health problems, which comes over after we've a lot of feelings, and we get this paranoia and all sorts of things that we can label ourselves, like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. I can never say that word. Narcissistic personality disorders. This is why people fear such traits, which include over-feeling and being over-emotional, I think. But healing can come from the intuitive too. And sometimes people stop trying to stop feeling so much that they block everything out so that they don't become this overly emotional person, but they go too far. Healing, being empathetic and having empathy is very healing, and it can come from the intuitive too. Whereas there is this sickness, and that is the antidote. The antidote is empathy. It takes a lot of work for you to learn the difference. So where we look at people who come from leaders, we often see something very different to Jeremy Corbyn, for instance. We can see him as somebody that is understanding, caring and understanding people. But leaders generally are somebody that has no empathy, and they're very cold-hearted, and they will do the most harm in the world. So empathy is still something that we need to continue to utilise. Stop cutting out. Stop being it. Because empathy is something that is a healing part of us that is necessary in the world. If you resonate with somebody like Jeremy, my opinion is you're on the right track to knowing yourself. I used to internalise people's assessments of me when they were not true, and it used to make me so angry. Now I see that people project onto others what is true about them. So anybody that has made any kind of assessment on me, generally, you can look at them and actually see, yeah, actually these people must have had that trait in them themselves to recognise it in me. And it is that anger that is the sickness, and we're able to administer our own antidote. And the antidote, again, is empathy. Lack of empathy is a sickness, and lack of empathy can lead to the type of sickness that is biblical, which I've discussed in my last video. It's no longer a time where it is people who come from other lands who are deemed irrelevant to our governments and leaders. These days they are deemed irrelevant by these evil ones if they don't have enough money. Even if these people live in the country they rule, even if it is their fault that these people are so poor, In countries where there is no empathy in the hearts of those leaders, people suffer the most. They won't recognise the great contribution of the lower paid or the value of creativity and raw talent. They recognise only the mirror image of self out in the world and reward that. And this is why there is so much imbalance in the world. It's why when the rich wage war, it is the poor who die. Such humans are not valuable enough to keep alive, which is why people are afraid. And what they see in the world is everything that they are inside reflected out to others, and so they look at others and someone like Jeremy, for instance, and people that have empathy and care, and all they see is someone who is a soft touch, and they have no clue of that inner strength of someone like that. And if they do, they call them names and relate more to the fear they hold of themselves and that they dislike of themselves. And they see the fear that they feel when they are vulnerable in those others. And when we experience others, it's always in response to our own experiences of life. None of these people, as with most of us, have ever experienced a kind leader before. They've become so used to it being one way, and they consider empathy as being a weakness that would compromise the country. There are many jokes and memes created about how soft Jeremy Corbyn is and how kind he is and how useless he is because of that. But there are times when kindness is a strength to be reckoned with. It takes strength to speak up for kindness, and that's a very big one. We're all too afraid to speak, and these days people are afraid to speak up for kindness. And as love begets love, kindness begets kindness, and also war begets war. Psychometry also can also be used to help police locate bodies. So why are people still not taking seriously the strength and power of emotions that are required to change the world and make it a better and friendlier place? So that we're not just living to survive, but living for the sake of living, because it's enjoying ourselves and living to not be afraid to speak about what's going on in our lives. So let's talk about psychometry. There's a number of different stories and theories that attempt to explain how psychometry works, or rather why it works. Some believe in the concept of animism, which is the belief that all objects have this inner life and can transmit and receive impressions from one another to another, or one object to another. We know when one feels something, it spreads, and that's not madness or stupidity, it's fact. Another theory is that objects can store magnetic energy, kind of like CDs store sound and music. A psychic is like the CD player that can access that energy. Now, according to Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe, consciousness and reality exist in a kind of hologram that contains a record of the past, present and future, and we can tap into that record using psychometry, and we are, in a sense, reading the vibrations within the hologram. And he says that the holographic ideas suggest that the talent psychometry is latent in all of us. If all of this is right, then why wouldn't it be right that we now act how we behave in the world, and what we vote for cannot have that same power to make more of itself? Since we don't know that when in a room of happy people, we do know rather that when in a room of happy people, we feel happier. When in a room of sad people, even if the situation is nothing to do with us, the mood is brought down. Feelings and emotions play a huge role in change. So why not make that change in the world on a grander scale? The reason is fear. Usually fear to speak up. You see, the bullies in the world are able to threaten jail time, take away rights, impose more debt onto people, those that can't afford, and of course more debt and jail time if they can't pay. And we're always questioning ourselves, let alone everything and everyone else, but we have to stop the self-questioning and self-disbelief we have been taught by others. We may ask, what if I'm not good enough? What if people leave me? What if I never live up to expectations? What if people see through my facade? What if people knew what I really don't know that even I am? And what if I run out of money? What if I fail at something? I've come to believe that being scared is the scariest thing we can ever do. Usually overcoming those things we fear can lead us to the most amazing times of our lives. So why not on the grander scale? Overcoming the ideas that we have been taught to believe, such as fear certain types of people, live loud and good and proud in the world. Bad and evil does not come from people who can't pay. It comes from those who impose payment upon those who can't pay and then threaten them some more. We've seen the stories of the wicked sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood, but doesn't seem to equate that this same evil and bad and wrongdoers to those who impose impossible taxes to the poor today. When living it, people just seem to not see the wood for the trees, and they continue this same story and wanting the same story because it feels safe. I know of people that wouldn't say hello to a Muslim for fear that they'll blow them up. These fears can become that extreme. And we see children having guns pointed at them in Palestine. Why? Because they fear that those children might have bombs strapped to them or whatever, or her. Whilst we look at the madness involved and we blame God or religion, or we fail to ask questions like, why would people go to such lengths? There must be something very wrong there where children are sacrificed and asked, why would these people want to escape life and want their children to escape life and see that as a good thing? People don't want to have guns pointed at them. So we need to start looking at the reasons behind why these things are happening. They fear one may have a bomb attached, so they will, think that every single person that living around us may also have the same. They have been brainwashed. That's the problem. They've been brainwashed by the media. So we've got to speak up for ourselves, to speak up for our personal truth for ourselves. We need more people going on YouTube and talking about how it is for them, even though it's scary, even though they may be being threatened. The best thing that we can do, is overcome that fear and do it anyway. I know people who would, like I said, are scared of Muslims. They wouldn't say hi to a Muslim because they think that they're one of them. And it's the risk you take when, there are these soldiers out there pointing guns at these children. But being a soldier, that's the risk you take. And it's no less less sacrifice when we ourselves send our kids out to war, when we allow them to become soldiers. And as I said, that's the risk you take being a soldier. You put your life at risk being a soldier. And that shouldn't include creating more fear in people or being fearful, using guns, pointing them at babies. And, none of this is okay, is it? We really have got to understand where that is all coming from and why people are doing it. And it comes from a state of fear. We in the West wave our flags of patriotism and don't seem to see the same evil and wickedness and madness is involved in this. So weigh this up. What's more dangerous, sending troops to war or letting go of fear to bring about peace? And stop this, allowing these guns to be pointed at children, because as soon as that's stopped, the less that happens, obviously the less people are going to retaliate because they're doing what they're doing because they're in fear themselves. According to the Daily Mail, and yes, I know the Mail, LOL, the French president Holland has admitted France has a problem with Islam and warned that the country's national symbol will one day be a woman in a burqa. The problem here again, is fear, isn't it? It isn't a reality at all. And so they implement these laws which take away human rights, and they eventually bring about what they fear: more people fighting for their rights to wear what they want and pray for what they want. Where in the human emotion does such a story rise from, we need to ask. Yes, fear, and an irrational fear at that. And it is these types of people with such irrational fear that get voted to power and voted to make laws and have their hand on the button that can annihilate thousands. Now that's a fear that is irrational. And why do we keep voting for these types of people? They're not well. They're not well. If they're really playing into this fear and speaking about it to people and allowing other people to feel that fear, because this is a leader. This is supposed to be a leader. It's irrational in the form of mental health that's spreading globally. So now, because of irrational fear, we've leaders leading this world with such fears, guiding the media with such fears, causing people in the world to believe such fears come from rational thinking people. After all, you wouldn't vote a madman to power, would you? Lol. Again. And I mean, this is madness, isn't it? So when you look at the world, or rather what human beings are doing in the world, and as I said in my other video that I've just looked over as well, the taking of children, I've mentioned that so many times. When we think about the things that are happening to us and are accepting this, it really is unacceptable. We're afraid that we're going to be jailed. We're afraid that we're going to, they're going to do more harm than they've already done. But what more harm can they do to a mother than remove her babies from her? So when you look at the world, or rather what human beings are doing to the world, stating that the world is bad, when you really look at the madness and where that's coming from, emotions of men, women, fear of men, and I need to add women there too also, fear to speak, pray, or fear to be who we are, those rights are being stripped, not only from Muslims, but from all of us. Look at the amount of cameras in the streets. Do you think they protect you, or are you feeling like me that your freedom is being stripped from you too? Well, we take away the rights of one group to take the rights of all. But then I think about this more rationally and conclude that because women have been allowed to express their emotions more than men, women are more able to feel safe with their feelings, and there lies quite a big difference as well. They feel safe when they shed tears. I'm the worse for it. Men, on the other hand, have been taught that big boys don't cry. To cry is weak, to fear is a weakness. And when you feel weak, you need to fight and appear tough and strong because you're feeling vulnerable. The fight or flight thing is embedded in every single human, and it is this mentality that is playing out in the world. We feel fear, so we must then build bigger bombs. We see anger being pointed our way because of the illegal wars, and we've created, or we've allowed, or we have voted for, and so we must point bigger guns back at those fighting back. We must put more energy into overcoming this fear of one another, and especially one another's cultures. The rewards encountered from the territory that our feet walk across, if we're willing to journey into those scary places, are great. They're immense. What are we really afraid of if it's not our own fear? I know of a wonderful lady, and I've spoken about her many times before in many other of my videos. She goes out to Uganda on her pension and has set up a nursery on her pension out there for the children, and it's called the Mother Ann Nursery. And as I've mentioned, she's been nominated for the Pride of Britain Awards, and I will put a link on the video of her on the news and her charity and her links to this work beneath this video. Imagine the fear that she had to overcome to go and do these things for those children. And she goes out there yearly, if not more, especially Christmas time, to take them gifts, and they appreciate things that our children would just say, is that, call that a gift? She's an amazing lady, and these children are so grateful and loving, and obviously she gets something out of it too. But it is the overcoming of that fear that is the most amazing thing of all, and it's something that we all need to do. Good things come from the overcoming of fear, unlike the thoughts of fear that your mind will constantly tell you because that's what you've been taught. What are the implications if we look down to find out that our feet simply can't move on this path anymore? Is this the route that leads us to feeling stuck and suffocated? Usually fear does that to us. It causes us to become statues. We can't move anymore, too afraid to move anymore. And so how can we mature from being afraid of our fear to having the courage to actually be afraid and doing it anyway? Dignity and pride dignity and pride are the products of ego. They restrict you from living. You cannot be an activist whilst operating reactively. You have to learn how to support yourself through fear to love proactively. Fear delivers happiness and new things, and you can get into a relationship because we're not afraid to be afraid of being abandoned, or leave a relationship in favour of better things in your life. Visit new countries. The world becomes your oyster when you face your fear head on, and fear offers up the ultimate gifts when you're willing to bow into your fear and give it up to a deeper intimacy, and not with others but with yourself. The hand of serendipity shows us that the words sacred and scared are the same thing. Imagine the courage it took for Jeremy Corbyn to stand and continue to stand in the face of adversity when others were walking away. And when we face our fears, we stand by our convictions. Only good things will come of this. And I truly do believe that good things are around the corner before a great war happens. And surely we've learnt by now, where we are on the brink of World War III. It has taken a lot of waking up, but it is happening. And the wake up is happening. And I think people are ready to say no more wars, no more voting for them. And as many did the bombing in Syria, in some ways, that too has perhaps been a necessity, a little reminder of what's on the cards for us all if we continue down that same old road. Everything happens for good reason. And this time the reason is so big you couldn't imagine, and you're a big part of this. Time to wake up or find yourself another story, one you chose where you failed to stop saying no more to being taught fear. Let go of the fear, or walk through it, or accept it and do it anyway. That's my message today. Anyway, thank you again for listening to this video, and hope to speak again soon. Love you all. Bye.